Greetings. This is Annabelle Ford, and myself and Cynthia Ellis Topsy are giving this presentation on the values of the Maya Forest Garden, living museums, and the school gardens of El Pilar. The ethnobiological heritage of Mesoamerica and the Maya is really related to the early development of expanded populations more than 12,000 years ago, coming into the Americas with skills of stone and fire. These hunters and gatherers expanded rapidly across the region from the Arctic Circle to Tierra del Fuego, adapting to climate change from the Ice Age to the warm Holocene, developing into archaic horticulturalists and later settled agriculturalists. This is a process that is very indicative of land use in the Americas. For the Maya forest, the dominant plants of the Maya forest are all valuable, and this is not an accident. All the necessities of life had to be brought from and wrought from the habitats that the people in the Maya forest lived in. So food, production, fodder, construction, latex, medicine, food, and poison, all these things are very important aspects of everyday life represented in these forests that the Maya lived in. Only one of the plants is wind pollinated and would be registered in the pollen cores from the area, but all of these are the dominant plants. Only 2% of the plants of the forest are pollinated by wind, so would be invisible in wind-pollinated assays. This is a critical area for conservation and, of course, development. It's a hot spot with 24,000 plant species, but less than 30% of the original extent. The dominant species are a co-creation of this Maya land use system we call the dynamic milpa cycle, which is a managed forest succession, very different from the ecological imperialist pasture and plow. This view here is what a version of what National Geographic might have presented, but instead of that, it's a forest and field. It's dynamic and changes with each generation, each need, each way, each cycle. It is not static, it is a dynamic. This is the area where that imprint of the Maya Forest Garden and the land use system is that which promoted the biodiversity based on the intimate knowledge of the landscape and its potentials. Here the Maya forest you can see is in southern Mesoamerica, and you can also see in the Landsat view that Mexico and Guatemala expansion of pasturage is marking the line that is the limit into Guatemala. We are exploring solutions past, taking these, the archaeological data and the contemporary traditional Maya, and looking at how we can implement a new system, especially in this COVID times where food and scarcity are more prevalent. We've helped establish in Belize and Guatemala the El Pilar Archaeological Reserve for Maya flora and fauna, which is promoting a living museum, archaeology under the canopy, and community participation. And in linking with that, we are developing the model school garden, Kanankash, to engage students with their fruitful landscape. But there's been a lot of pressure to not have the traditional land use, not slash and burn, I call it select and grow, not having any of these fields and forests in your home, as here you can see was legislated against in 1552 ordinance, where they did not want to see any milpas in the town. They wanted houses close together in the modo española, and also without sown land and groves, and if there were, they were going to burn them. In fact, they were unsuccessful in actually eliminating it, but slowly and surely these have been put to the side. Yet this dynamic field to forest to field cycle is really a very important product of resource management, and starting with short-term perennials, moving into fast-growing short-term annuals and moving into fast-growing perennials, and then close canopy trees. This cycle is periodic across the landscape, not all at once, and dynamic so that the necessities of life are always available. In fact, while the home gardens are dominated by trees, they include all the different habits of shrubs, herbs, lanais, plants, grasses, ferns, and trees, as the maize-dominated outfields. But those shrubs and trees and other things are lower in the canopy, dominated by the maize, but ready to go into the cycle later on. Here is an infield showing how dynamic the landscape is with its wonderful trees in the background. But those in the outfields, you can see that it's cleared, but there are trees in this field, and they're favored. We have a list of some 200 trees that are favored in these Maya forest gardens. The planting of the field in the shallow soils around the limestone, no place for a plow, but perfect for the dibblestick. And shortly the maize is growing with many other crops, and in the first phases the maize is turned and you can see the beans are growing. Perennials are developed in the areas where they're working towards the next part of the cycle, and indeed these fast-growing perennials give way to the forest garden. You can see here, even though there are forbs and fast-growing herbs in the that persist even though the perennial forest is mature, showing that these things do persist through the whole cycle. How are we honoring it? This is a good question. We really feel that it's very important that the Maya monuments are retaining their forest. In fact, here is 2012 versus 1972, and you can see that the mask is no longer there. It's the sobering facts of the stresses of morning sun and evening moisture and rain, attracting biofilms whose lifetime of job is to create good soil out of limestone, but not turning masks into ruins. We want to see a living museum where the Maya forest can be seen as framing these monuments, advancing a peace park in the living museum, promoting archaeology under the canopy, where we invite exploration that embrace culture and nature, conserving monuments, shading the visitors, and appreciating the forest. Climate change, though, is affecting, and of course the temperature is rising, chaos in precipitation, unpredictability from year to year. Yet the climate of the past did the same thing, and we can see that the rise of the Maya civilization that's after 4000 occurred in the context of climate chaos. And here are those forbs that are so prevalent across the cycle, and the only wind-pollinated tree just still there, but not indicating that it's deforestation, but rather a vital milpa cycle. This is action for climate change. This system builds fertility, reduces erosion, lowers temperature, conserves water, and increases biodiversity that cares for people and our planet. And these heroes of the Maya forest, who are growing older, and some are dying here, Beatriz, Leonardo, Alcario, and Heriberto, these are all equivalent of encyclopedias that are leaving. And without the practice, without the following, without the understanding, we can't keep these heroes in passing on their information. So we think that bringing them to the model school, Kanankash, where they can show the importance of the trees and the relevance of traditions and the impact of climate by sharing their skill, practice, and knowledge as a model for all schools, initiated by these forest gardener heroes, workshops for teachers, and environmental lessons for students. And in fact, we have put this to practice. And here you can see our example here in Cayo, where the trees after 2 years show that we give our thanks to the Maya forest gardeners, these master gardeners, we are thankful that we can still learn from them.